Let's start. Who am I? I worked at Infosys when Infosys was a very small company 25 years ago, back in Bangalore, India. And then migrated here through IBM Consulting, worked on Deluxe Checks when they wanted to do the deluxechecks.com, the very first .com in 1999, or actually 1998, I suppose. So did a lot of .com with IBM at Carlson, Retech, and then moved on to healthcare at United Health Group. And for the last 11 years, I'm with Virtuwell, which is a division of Health Partners. I hope folks know Virtuwell is, so I can skip through those slides so we can talk about the future of healthcare rather than the current status of healthcare. Since it's a small group, Justin, is it okay if people put questions in the chat room, and then if you can interrupt me and ask those questions, is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is what Goldman Sachs gave 3 years ago. So it's going to be a $50 billion savings is what Goldman Sachs said by 2025 because of AI in healthcare. And the two things that I highlighted in purple is where Virtuwell is operating. So that's a $25 billion market space for us on telehealth, on primary care primarily. The other article that I saw a couple of years ago was from Accenture. And so they were saying there's going to be a $150 billion plus saving in the next 10 years. So that was like 2 years ago from Accenture. And then CB Insights also published that one. So from that perspective, if you really look at it, $150 billion saving in healthcare is something that we all need to be aware of, isn't it? Because that's what we need in healthcare at this point of time, I suppose. So what is Virtuwell? So skip a trip to a clinic. So you can start your visit from any device, anytime, and a flat fee of $49. And we do work with 18 different insurance companies. So most of the folks pay nothing because the insurance takes care of the whole 49. All you do is finish a questionnaire. It's a dynamic kind of a question. And typically people get 40 to 50 questions, depending on whatever you answer at the beginning of the interview. And then you get a customized treatment plan with a prescription to your preferred pharmacy. So from the start till the end, it takes about an hour. So you start this interview at 6 p.m., then at 7, you will have your prescription. So your treatment plan is usually, you're ready 30 minutes to 45-minute time frame. So that's what Virtuwell is all about. It's not a video visit. Whenever I talk about telehealth, a lot of people think it's a video visit. So what we have done is you could see customer feedback right on the website. There aren't many healthcare websites out here or healthcare care delivery platforms which publish the customer feedback. I know some of the retail vendors, they do publish customer feedback on the website, but none of the healthcare care delivery platforms deliver that, but Virtuwell does. We do have more than 50,000 plus online published reviews, and it's a 4.8 plus rating. And it was all developed in St. Paul's. A lot of people think that Virtuwell is outsourced or done elsewhere. So everything was done here. It was funded by Health Partners. It's part of Health Partners. Health Partners is a $5+ billion division here in Twin Cities, and Virtuwell is a division of Health Partners. So what we treat, simple conditions like UTI, sinus, cough, cold, allergy. The list got updated. Right now we're treating 80+ conditions. So at the beginning of time, 10 years ago, actually 9 years ago when we launched, we were treating 30 conditions or so, or actually 25. And right now we are at 80+. So just to give you a rough idea, last year alone, we treated 30,000 plus urinary tract infection people in the state of Minnesota and Wisconsin. And so just imagine the amount of lab testing and clinic time that we have saved, and to get the prescription at the hands of people. So we all know how fast you need a medication when you have a UTI. And so we have been able to do that. As I mentioned, Virtuwell is a dynamic decision tree questionnaire. So as more and more people take this interview, this becomes intelligent. And this is where the difference is between a telehealth, which does video visit, and a telehealth, which does a questionnaire. So it's a lot of people sometimes think that they are actually interacting with the nurse practitioner behind the scenes because the questions become very customized based on the answers that you do. So what Virtuwell does, what Virtuwell did, so obviously we worked with Health Partners as an insurance company. So this is what Health Partners published in 2018. So Health Partners as an insurance company has saved close to $57 million, and we have offered 500,000 treatment plans for the health plan members, and actually 98% of them highly recommend Virtuwell. So it's just not only about affordability, it's also about accuracy in care and antibiotic accuracy. We do have a 99.5% rating, and also it's about the experience. So it's kind of like the triple aim thing that we hit. And we not only work with health partners, a lot of people think it's only a health partners insurance company. So pretty much we work with any other insurance companies out here in town, including Preferred One, Medica, Blue Cross. So enough about Virtuwell. So any questions before I slide into our AI initiatives?
Haven't seen anything yet.
Okay. So our first AI initiative obviously is the dynamic questionnaire that we did. The first thing that we did before that was to do pharmacy routing. So when I say pharmacy routing, that was an internal project that we kicked off 3 years ago. We initially worked only with the state of Wisconsin and Minnesota, but then we expanded to 13 different states. Even though we work only for those patients in 13 states, people can travel anywhere. Like for instance, I could be in Florida. Right now I shouldn't be talking about travel, but in a typical scenario I'm talking about, people travel to different parts of the country, and if they feel sick, they could pick up their phone and do a virtual visit and get the treatment plan to that specific pharmacy close by. So not to the pharmacy that you have selected, but to the closest Walgreens or CVS or whatever it is. So we do work with the 95,000 plus pharmacies, even though most of it, we have sent it to the 20,000 in and around Minnesota, Wisconsin area, but we have sent prescriptions to all 50 states. So now the problem is Virtuwell is 24/7. So people finish their interview at 7 p.m., get to a pharmacy, the pharmacy is closed. So they then call back Virtuwell and say like, oh, I want this to be sent to this 24-hour pharmacy or this pharmacy which is close by. So unfortunately, the call center folks cannot unwire that prescription and rewire it to a different pharmacy. So it has to go to the nurse practitioner, and they have to unwind it and then put it to the new pharmacy. So that takes quite a bit of time. So we wanted to solve that. So this is how we solved it. The pharmacy name and the pharmacy address actually comes from the Arcopia vendor. The actual hours of operation that they provide is obviously not up to date. We all know that the Google has answers to that. So with Google API, we figured out all the hours of operation, plus all these pharmacies change. So on a given day, 500 plus pharmacies have new hours and new location, and they close and they merge, and there is always data change. So what we did was we got the LONLAT from Google, hours of operation from Google, and through some natural language processing software, we did match these 25,000 plus pharmacies, and then that runs every night just on the latest changes. So anytime when consumers come and take the interview, we just tell them like, hey, this is not open, this is open 24/7. And if somebody chooses a pharmacy at 6 p.m. as we speak right now, and if you go through the screen, and if their preferred, if that pharmacy selected as closing in the next 30 minutes or an hour, it'll pop up and indicate that, are you sure this is what the pharmacy you want, because they're going to close. So this kind of improved So this is our screen selection on pharmacy. So this improved our callback ratio. So 90% of calls were avoided after we introduced this feature by displaying the right kind of info to the consumers. We can avoid all these callbacks and the provider time. So the next thing that we worked on is how do we, when patients, I know in a telehealth setup, people have confusion on like, okay, what happens if they have to do a follow-up? Virtuwell does free follow-up care. And if people aren't feeling good after 2 days, 3 days, actually the system itself figures it out for the diagnosis that they have, for the age profile that they're in. They should get better in 2 days or 3 days or 5 days or 7 days or 10 days or whatever it is. And then it follows up and we do a systematic follow-up. And if people aren't getting better, they can do a request to call back from the nurse practitioners for free. So what this model does is it captures all of the data points, and then when the next patient comes in, we just want to make sure that they don't go through the same trouble as the previous patient. So it's kind of a learning implied in here. So the other thing that we did was we connect the patients with the right clinician at the right time. So instead of routing it to the first provider, can we route this specific skin case to a lead provider or to a skincare provider? It's just not about that. It's about like what profile you fit in, what kind of treatment plans that you have already treated with Virtuwell, so then you get better at it. So during busy time, can we route the queue to the right clinician so they can do a better care for the patient? So there are a lot of logic behind it. So the other project that I want to highlight here is provider scheduling. So how did we work with provider scheduling? Behind the scenes, Virtuwell uses hundreds of nurse practitioners. Now, at a given time, 10 to 20 folks work a 4-hour or 8-hour shift. But we want to have the right kind of mix of people. Plus, also, we want to have the right amount of people, the right amount of providers. So keeping the wait time to a 30-minute minimum is the main goal. So do you guys get the problem? Because just by having 40 providers or 40 physicians, we can solve the problem easily, but you have to have the right amount and also the right mix. So that's the goal. Then we had to do the visit forecasters, and it's going to change. We have to do this provider schedule for the next 5 weeks because people pick up shifts for the next 5 weeks. It's a 24/7. People pick 4-hour shifts or 8-hour shifts. And every week is going to be different. Within a week, the traffic is going to change. As you can see, sometimes Tuesdays are crazy or Mondays are crazy. We have to figure out which day is going to have a huge volume. And then we also need to figure out on a given day, where is going to be the boatload of traffic coming. So when we have hundreds of patients at 9 a.m., we got to have that many providers to work the queue, to work these cases so that the patients can get their treatment plan in 30 minutes. So this visit forecast, this predictive analytic problem became a huge one. So we worked on looking at historical data, looking at Google search trends. So we brought in a lot of features into our machine learning algorithm to do a forecast for the day, forecast on an hourly basis, forecast on a 30-minute basis. And then we also figured out the protocol, like how many people are going to come for skin, how many people are going to come for acne kind of a problem, or obviously on a day like today, nobody's going to come for sunburn. We know that, but these predictive analytics, it does all these analysis based on different search trends and comes up with forecasting. So previously we used a spreadsheet model a couple of years ago. So once we crossed the 1 hour window, we said we will give it for free. So we've had to offer a lot of free visits. But after we implemented this visit forecasting and integrated with our provider scheduling algorithm, we improved our accuracy to 94%. So that was a way better jump from the mid 70s to mid 90s. And this helped our provider team to be a lot happier, and in turn, consumers are a lot happier because they get their treatment plan within the 30, 45 minutes. But this all worked till March 10th.
I was just gonna say that's really cool. I am just curious, was that a feature that sort of fell out as you guys started building this? I mean, it probably isn't very obvious when you first sort of launched the product and started working on it, and then is it one of these things that maybe evolved over time, or was it something that was sort of an initial feature that this predictive analytics piece that you guys had always sort of planned on doing?
We wanted to do this a couple of years ago because our traffic was growing. Year over year, I should have said this before, year over year, Virtuwell is growing at a 25 to 35%, okay? This is our year 10, Justin. So first year to today, so you can do the math. And 30%, so I always talk to my financial analyst about, like, at least you got to beat me 1 year, man. On Virtuwell's numbers, but Virtuwell is a not-for-profit because we're part of Health Partners. But jokes apart, we've been consistently growing, and we want to meet the expectations. So Jan 2018, that was like a couple of years ago. Jan is usually a busy month, like December, Jan, Feb, because of the flu and crud and all that's going on in the marketplace, especially in the northern states. So our traffic pattern were going crazy on certain days. So you have to track the flu trends, and based on that, things will go skyrocket. So we were trying to do some, but every day it'll change. And we will either have a lot of nurse practitioners or we will not have. So that's where we wanted to work on this on Feb 2018. And then we put this into production by late 2018, early 2019. And this has evolved in the last 15 or 18 months. So Jan 2020 was the busiest month that we have ever been, apart from March. And we had like a 95% accuracy on the month of Jan, or on an hourly basis. That was pretty cool to see, because this thing learned it does a lot of weighted averages and 100 different things, isn't it, that you can't think of doing it through a spreadsheet or anybody manually. So our provider scheduling team was super happy. And then on March 10th or mid-March, things blow up in a different way. So our wait times, we couldn't take that much of a load from an operational perspective. So luckily, the digital portion of it was all working fine because we were on a private cloud, so we could scale much easier because of all the cloud-based orchestration and container-based architecture that we had. So all of that was working fine, but operationally, we need to have hundreds of nurse practitioners to work the queue to figure out the treatment plan for the consumers, isn't it, for the patients. So, and that didn't work. We could not do it within the hour. At one day, I still remember on March 24th, I believe, it was close to a 24-hour wait time because we had more than 1,000 people on the queue waiting for treatment plan at one time, 1,000 plus.
Wow.
But there were no other go. So then we had to update a lot of screens that we are not taking an interview for a couple of hours, because we wanted to do the catch-up game at that time. But we did some adjustments in April, so April looks a lot better. So whenever I talk about the forecasting now in the future, I have to somehow take March 2020 out of the picture, because it went haywire. Any other questions before I jump out of Virtuwell to talk about other things, because I've talked enough about Virtuwell?
No, I think we're good for now.
Okay, so we'll come back if there are any questions on what we do. But I just want to talk about some other telehealth companies. I'm sure you guys have heard about Doctor on Demand or MD Live, and the huge difference between a virtual visit through a video platform to what Virtuwell does is ours is a complete digital company. And so we can scale a lot faster and scale a lot better compared to a video visit. So this is how I envision, like 25 years ago or 20 years ago, if you have to do a stock transaction or a bond purchase or stock purchase, I don't know whether there are any 50-year-olds in this meetup today. You have to walk into a traditional bank or some kind of a financial institution to do those kind of transactions 25 years ago. Or you have to call in and make the stock purchase. And then in the mid-90s, when the internet came, so there were screens to do that, and then somebody else will take that output from the screen and they'll act on it. But today, 99.99% of transactions all happen over simple mouse clicks. And it's much, much faster than doing through a video chat. I don't think so anybody is doing a video chat with their financial broker or doing any kind of transactions through that. Or even walking to a bank. Maybe 1% of people still do, but a lot of it happens through your device, I suppose. So just do a couple of clicks. So that's where healthcare needs to move to, but maybe not to 99%, maybe 60%, 70% is what I envision. So some of the companies that I want to highlight here, this is specific to primary care delivery on a telehealth platform. 98.6 so is another one that came in the market space 3-4 years ago. So they take the Netflix model. So you can do a flat fee and then you can do the visits. So I say data is the new oil. So it's kind of like the diagnosis plus the treatment plan. And very similar to the Virtuwell model, but instead of doing per visit, they're doing it per month or per year. Did anybody have heard about Bui Health? Bui Health is a pretty big company out in the Europe, and they are also making some space in this some of the southern states here in United States. So they have taken pretty much all the clinical papers, all published clinical papers, and they are able to diagnose 1,700 conditions or so. So at Virtuwell, we talk about only 80 or 90 conditions, while Bui Health is doing pretty much a lot of the ICD-10s. And in the first year, they added 5 million patients to their platform. Can anybody guess how many years did it take for Netflix to add 5 million patients? I mean, 5 million consumers, I should say, 5 million. So it took Bui Health actually 10 months to do that. For Netflix, anybody? I'm not seeing the chat room, unfortunately.
Yeah, no one's typed anything, but I'll guess 5 years.
5 years, yes. So actually it took 5.5 years for Netflix to do the 1 million. But now they're doing, I mean 5 million in 5.5 years. But these guys did it in less than 10 months. So what they do is they do a diagnosis prediction, and then they give it all to the consumer, and then the consumer, when they go to the real clinic, they verify it, and they give the answer back to this engine so that it learns. So it's basically a learning engine. And they are slowly moving into some kind of an approval process so that on certain diagnoses, after the answers, they can come up with the diagnosis. So that's kind of a very interesting model. Your.MD is another company which is using the Bayesian logic and a lot of NLP stuff, and very similar to the interview that you do. But they not only work on these simple acute conditions, but on a lot of chronic conditions, especially on behavioral health. This company has done quite a stride. So these are all based out here in the United States. So Bright.MD is another company out in Portland, Oregon. And so they not only do the diagnosis prediction and treatment plan prediction, they are also able to get to the next level of prescription prediction. So for this set of diagnosis, this condition, for this patient, this is the set of prescriptions that they need. So they are able to write those kind of answers at a much, much faster pace. So if you go to a typical clinic, can anybody guess how many patients that a provider sees? Like how many minutes do you get with your doc? Can anybody guess if you go into a regular clinic? Talking about a retail regular clinic, not a teleclinic.
I think somebody's guessing about 10 minutes with a doc.
10 minutes with the doc, no. You get 20 minutes. You probably are spending only 10 minutes, and the rest of the 10 minutes, the doctor is documenting that in a 1990 software. But your total visit is 20 minutes, or in some cases it's 25 minutes, in some cases it's 30 minutes. There is no such thing as 10 minutes. So in other words, a doc on a given day, I'm talking about an 8-hour shift day, they see 20 to 24 patients, or 25. You get it? Like 20 minutes, it's on an hour, it's 3 patients, so 24 max. In most clinics, they see 18 to 24, 18 to 26, something like that. So that's a regular clinic. On a virtual, when we started, yes, it took 20 minutes. So our goal was to do the learning, present the right kind of information to the providers, so to get that time lowered. So we didn't get to, I mean, we are getting it to the 10-minute mark right now. So that's a lot of efficiency. So now instead of seeing 4 patients, we can see 6 or 7 patients is where we are. But what this company has published, Bright.MD, since they're able to predict diagnosis, treatment plan, and the whole prescription, so it's only a couple of mouse clicks for the provider. So they can do more than 30 or 40 an hour is what they're saying. So that way, on a given day, they can do like 200 patients. So I don't know how that's going to change the whole scenario of billing, but that's a phenomenal number that they've published. So this Bright.MD is in Portland, I mean, based out in Portland. So let's move away from telehealth. Now let's get into some kind of an AI diagnosis on a big hospital setting. What is happening out there? Let's look at some of the FDA approved stuff. So these are not some future, but these are some things that are already in play in most of Western Europe or in the United States. Well, before I do that, any other questions, Justin? It's a small group.
Yeah, we've got a couple questions. I don't know if I want to save them for the end, but
okay.
But
shoot me.
What's that? You want me to throw them at you, see if they make sense?
Yeah.
And I think this was kind of going back to the forecasting.
Yep.
How do you deal with keeping pace with formularies? Is the question. Just taking it verbatim.
Formularies. I'm not getting.
Like, what if a pharmacy gives a generic and patients won't accept the change at the pharmacy level?
Yeah, so in that, if I understand the question right, if the consumer wants the specific ones, they can do the follow-up with Virtuwell, and then the nurse practitioner will call them, and then if they want a different prescription, they'll route it to the pharmacy. It's all e-prescribing, isn't it? So I'm not getting
override
into forecasting. So that is so maybe the question is like, okay, what happens of that provider time? Yes. So it's not only about the new cases that are coming in. So we also predict how many people will need follow-up. And there are different kinds of follow-ups, isn't it? Prescription changes is one kind of follow-up. I'm not getting better. Is this diagnosis the right thing? So and those kind of follow-ups are different. There are different kinds of follow-ups, and all of this needs provider time. Whenever I say provider, it's doc time, okay? Some kind of nurse practitioner time or a physician assistant time, or sometimes it could be a registered nurse. So the system figures it out, routes it to that person, and then they need to spend time. So when we forecast, we not only forecast on the new patients, returning patients, we also forecast on these different kinds of follow-up needs. And so that all goes into the queues, and it's just not about treating patients. It's also about all those other things. that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
And I've unmuted Sarah. She's the one that had the question. She probably has a follow-up.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering with your forecasting, how that kind of is dealt with if, you know, the pharmacy chains to a generic or whatever. And then, I mean, it's a lot to take in what you've done. It's really incredible. But what I'm curious about is you're trying to fit, you know, 200 visits in a day. And
No, not we. Sorry. No, that is not what Virtuwell did. So I was
no,
very
I know where I jumped to the Bright thing. No, I jumped.
Right.mt. Yes, go ahead. Yes.
And first of all, I mean, patients want more time with their doctors, and the doctors want to
Exactly.
be paid.
I am not a big fan of what these guys are publishing, to be honest with you. So doctors want more time, and that is what is not happening. I am absolutely agree with you, Sarah. So we at Virtuwell, we don't have a goal to get it down to like 2 minutes or something like that. Be happy to get to that 10-minute marker, but that's on the initial visit, isn't it? But there are some follow-ups. And so we want to provide all the right information to the clinician to make the diagnosis and also make the treatment plan. And so if you go look at all of our feedback, you will know the customized treatment plan that consumers get is very personalized. And that's what we do with a lot of NLP and other things. So the software plays only 50%. The other 50% is the actual clinician. So there is a lot of people ask me like, is this going to replace the whole doctor time or the whole doctor's presence? No, I say it's a 50-50. So you have to use the technology in the right way to augment what our clinicians do. Right now, if you go to a regular clinic, what is happening is the doctor is tied into that have you seen those blue screens? The 1980s kind of industrial screen. And that's what I don't want to name the softwares, but that's what a lot of EMRs that, including Mayo Clinic uses. And that was all written before Java 1 came out, okay? It's just to be on the clear side. So some of them still runs in Java 1. So you can go figure out how old it is, okay? So it's probably older than your teenage kid, I suppose. So that's the software. And so it doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles of what we are talking about today. That's what we want to change. So if you do the right, so I hope I answered it. Any other questions?
Yeah, no,
Yeah. So
yeah, it's really good. I just trying to
sorry, Sarah, you're
objective.
a lot of
perspective.
feedback.
And so it's
Sarah, I think if you can try to start again, there's a lot of feedback and you were kind of in and out.
oh, I'm sorry.
That's better now.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of potential with the telemed and figuring out staffing. And I mean, just imagine if, you know, if people don't want to work at night, that we could do more global stuff with the unless this is just US, but.
No. So that's a great question, Sarah. So all of these docs who are working for Virtuwell, so they're all Virtuwell employees. They all work from different parts of the country, but they're all licensed in the state of Minnesota. Actually, most of our nurse practitioners and physician assistants, they're all in the upper Midwest area. And for the state that they need to operate, they need to be licensed. So this, unfortunately, it cannot be done from overseas. And they have to be here, and here in the sense in United States, and they also need to be licensed. So for instance, we operate in the state of California, and most of our nurse practitioners are licensed in the state of California and also the state of New York. But that comes up with new challenges because certain conditions in certain states, we cannot treat over the wire. So they don't allow it. So as a consumer, if you take this interview as you reside in the state of California, it's going to be slightly different when you're doing it in here in the state of Minnesota. And then the nurse practitioners, can only handle certain things over in this state. So there are lots of state regulations. So that's where this makes it much more complicated for a lot of the newcomers to get into this market space.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, so let's switch gears to AI plus diagnosis. So this is something that I'm pretty interested in. So what some of these AI systems are doing is, I'm sure you guys have heard a lot of this in COVID, but what this is doing is it does lung cancer detection via the moment the radiology scan comes in. Instead of going through multiple scans, this learns from the previous scans and it can figure out whether your clumps are cancerous or not. So Optelum is a company that does this, and this is being used in NHS. NHS is the National Health Service in London. The company is actually based out in the eastern United States, but they have been working in UK and a couple of other European countries. And so this is a lot of promise in early lung cancer detection. Okay, so this is in a hospital setting. Ultramics is another one that's working in the John Ratcliffe in London. And so they have increased the diagnostic accuracy from 80% to 94% on coronary heart disease. So just everybody to get up to speed, if you're above 50, the 50% of us who are on the call who are above 50 will have some kind of a coronary heart disease problem in this country. And so to have some kind of an AI engine to predict at a 15% better than any human being, I kind of really like it. So these are all like machine learning algorithms which can read the radiology and predict some kind of cancer cell prediction or the cardiac function prediction. It's cool. Viz.ai does similar stuff for stroke care. So they do improve a lot of like life-saving therapies are coming through their deep learning technology. So Viz.ai got their FDA approval 6 months ago. So this is not completely autonomous. So it kind of augments the radiologist's work and figures out like these things need to be prioritized for an on-call physician. So go read about it. So they got the FDA approval a couple of years ago, not last, in 2018. The another company, AI Doc, so they got FDA approval. This was last year. And so this is also another thing on radiology, but they're taking it not only on head, but also on chest and spine and abdominal. And they can also prioritize the life-threatening cases easily. So they do like, these are called health grade AI algorithms. So AI Doc is another company out here in the West. Zebra Medical Vision, and so they use calcium scoring algorithm. So this is also another thing that they do on cardiovascular, but through the chest CT scans, so they can provide a lot of early detection. So this is another interesting company, and they got their this calcium scoring algorithm is very unique, which these guys have patented, and so that's being raved upon lately in the last few months. So these guys are another promising company. This company is actually based out in Beijing. So this is the only Chinese company who has gotten an FDA approval on an AI algorithm on their ECG platform. This is also on cardiovascular and can detect whatever that disease is. So these guys work on very specific. So all these AI algorithms, unfortunately, they work on very specific functions. So this one is impulsive conduction abnormality detection. And these guys, the moment the scan comes out, you feed it to this algorithm, and then they come up with the analysis. And they're saying that they're 10% better than the docs do, or 15% better than the docs do. And so these guys got their FDA approval last November. So this is the only Chinese company so far. There are tons of other companies in the lineup which are applying for the FDA approval. So these are all AI-based algorithms.
But as you said, it's not a generalized. You're not able to generalize a lot of this stuff enough, right?
No, yeah. It's all specific stuff. I like this company, IDXDR. They were the first company to get FDA approval for any kind of an AI algorithm. And so their device is to identify diabetic retinopathy. So can you guys see that little robo thing? So what that does is it does an ophthalmology scan. So it scans your retina, okay? And then the moment it scans, it compares it to the 20 million images, and it can figure out whether you will have diabetic retinopathy or not in exactly 1 minute. So this is already in play in a couple of states. Can anybody guess where this company is, IDXDR?
Bay Area. That's what somebody.
Yes, everybody thinks it's Bay Area. So it's in the middle of Iowa. It's in Cedar Rapids, actually Iowa City. It's a startup from the University of Iowa, whatever the university is in the Iowa City. And so they gave a run for money for Verily. Verily is also working on the same problem. Do you guys know about Verily? Verily is the Google's medical division. I mean, Alphabet's division, I should be precise. Alphabet's. But these guys got the first FDA approval. So they did on tons of patients. And so they have a much better accuracy. And this little robo thing, it's more like the photo booth. I've seen this one. So it's more like a photo booth. And then a registered nurse can operate this. And the moment it captures the retina scan, it gives you the treatment plan in a couple of minutes. So it knows whether you're going to have this diabetic retinopathy, what kind and all that, but it gives you the treatment plan in 2 minutes. So this is the first company to do autonomous AI. All the other companies that we talked about so far are augmented AI. And so this one is an autonomous AI. So what this does is if you have a okay, people should know, 24 to 25,000 people in United States lose eyesight every year because of diabetic retinopathy. This is a completely curable disease, guys. I'm talking about it only in United States. So if you take countries like India, which is like highly diabetic, that number is humongous. So imagine this device, if it's across all little clinics, you just go scan it, and then it gets you the treatment plan with all the prescriptions that you need to take and everything. In United States, for instance, if you have to go for this diabetic retinopathy scan right now, you have to go to a regular doc who refer you to an ophthalmologist, a specialized ophthalmologist person takes this scan, refer you to the scan center, which gets you to a radiologist, and then they scan it, get it all the results processed, and then it comes back to your ophthalmologist, and then you get your treatment plan. So this could take like easily 2-3 months, isn't it? And the IDXDR folks are saying that this is approximately 6,000 to 16,000, depending on where you live in the country, to get this cost, but the total cost to get this care. But what they have done is they have gotten it down to $300. So this is already in play in 3 different locations. And so this is coming across the country right now.
And Senthil, we had a question from Sarah saying, if you can speak on how the technologies are validated against what the physicians can do.
Yes, for IDXDR, you mean?
I am assuming it's Sarah's question.
Yep.
You can always check.
Yes. Yep. So if you go look at it, this is not, that's why a lot of people think that, oh, how can this be better than the clinicians? So you have to understand they took eye samples of million different patients across different profiles, and they proved it, and it took them more than 2 years. So when these guys talked about this 5 years ago at a conference, I was also having the same skepticism as Sarah. So they're not going to get the FDA approval in my lifetime, because autonomous AI, whenever I thought about it, it was going to be the car, isn't it? The Tesla is the first autonomous AI which will drive through, and I don't have to drive, isn't it? So that's the first autonomous AI that I thought of. And I was also talking to a bunch of my folks on the conference, and they all believed that the first autonomous AI solution would be an autonomous car. I know Justin probably knows about this. There are a couple of companies in Minnesota also working towards that. And that is still a distant reality, while this thing got approved because of the reach that this could have, and also the accuracy that this has. And you can go read about a bunch of published papers on this IDXDR. But what excites me about this company, Sarah, is they have now 7 different patents on doing a kidney diagnosis through retina scan, doing liver diagnosis. There are like set of liver diseases that they can do through retina scan. So this kind of makes me wonder, like, how is this possible? So it looks like your eyeball is connected to all these different internal organs, whether, believe it or not. So you can do it through your retina scan, can figure out what kind of liver problem you have, what kind of spleen problem you have, and they're able to detect a lot of these things. So you can, there's like a bunch of documents already published on their website. So just go read it. It's so fun to read, and it changes the whole picture. So it takes me back to my young days. My grandma always used to tell me, like, right when I come back from home. So she always told me, I can read your eyes until you're telling me a lie.
Yeah.
I always wondered, how can you read my eyes? And it looks like you can read your eye, and you can talk about a lot of your internal organs now. So that she wasn't even kidding. I was all on thinking she was kidding. But anyway, let's move on to smart IoT machines and telehealth. There are a lot of sensors and other things. I'll just quickly skim through. Verily is the name of the company that I was talking about. It's an Alphabet subsidiary. So they have this FDA approved device. So this can record the ECG and detect a lot of heart conditions as we speak. So a lot of people have started using it. So DreamMed is a diabetic one, and they do a decision support to maintain glucose levels. So they give you a device, and then that can monitor all of your diabetic stuff. So Empatica is another company, and so they use a watch-like device. So this is a Boston-based company to do epilepsy management. So they can figure out when the person is going to have the episode, and then they can send some kind of alert to everybody so that the person will get the attention soon. So it's kind of a smart band. And Empatica, they have the FDA approval already. So this is another company waiting for the FDA approval. I was thinking that when I update the slide in April, it'll have the approval, but the last 2 months has been really crazy. So they didn't get it yet. So it's a healthy.io. So what this does is you can get it into your home, and then and then put this little stick in there, as you can see in the picture, and it'll change color, and through computer vision algorithms, it'll figure out what kind of urinary infections you have. So they also do a couple of kidney problems. So their first product is called dip.io. Just to do the color palette and hue and saturation, so they do give a little slide in where you need to put the stick in. So it's kind of a unique way of recording the color and giving it to the care provider. There is a new area called artificial emotional intelligence. I don't know how many of you knew about this. So Mayo Clinic partnered with this company called Beyond Verbal. So it's a company out of Tel Aviv, Israel. So they do feature, like, give it to the folks to read a paragraph, and then through voice recognition, the sign of stress and all that, they can figure out the pitch. Based on the pitch and tone and something, they can figure out the coronary artery disease. This looks like Star Wars to me, but it is waiting for the approval right now. So there is another MIT startup called Affectiva, and they also are working in the same area. So, and they're doing it on the facial recognition. So based on how the face changes, in addition to the tonal and pitch, Affectiva is talking about we can detect coronary artery disease. So the point is, future is here. So already care delivery is happening through some AI engines. So prescriptions, you can get it. Now, how many of you know about PillPack? Have you guys heard about PillPack? Amazon scooped them. I think it was like 2-3 months ago. So there are similar companies like Alto Capsule. Blink Health is another company. I'm sure folks have heard about GoodRx. So these guys all do the prescription delivery, pricing, work with different insurance, work with pharmacists. So that's all happening on the prescription delivery. And now these people can wear sensors. So we are moving from primary care to mental health. Like Lyra, for instance, is working on mental health. Halicon Health is working on behavioral health, to physical health. Like you can even do physical therapy. So it's called teletherapy is the new field now. It's not only telemedicine, telehealth care. Now the teletherapy is happening. So behavioral health is another big thing. Now med devices will also be on demand. Outset Medical is another company. Just go read about it. So what they're doing is they have developed some kind of a hemodialysis system that you can have it at your home on an on-demand basis. You can just connect yourself and do it, is what they're talking about. So you will have the med devices on demand in the future. And then the regenerative meds is another area that is changing the whole industry. So hopefully we will have all the stem cell therapy. So there is a company by name Jasper Therapeutics, and so they're developing some agents for safer, more effective stem cell transplant through some AI engine. It's pretty interesting areas on all these different healthcare. So there is another wearable defib that you can attach it, and you can figure out when you're going to have a cardiac arrest and attach that one, and it'll allow you to do that. And that's waiting for the FDA approval right now. I think that company's Element Science, I believe. So there's a lot happening, guys, on this healthcare field, especially on the AI front. So we'll open it up to questions.
I think Venkat has sent a couple questions in here, so I'll unmute him with you. If you're good. Maybe?
All right. Okay. Thank you, Senthil. That was a fascinating presentation. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Venkat. Yeah.
Yeah. So this was based on what you had said earlier, obviously, about Virtuwell. I was curious to know, based on the trends that you see, is this likely that going forward you will see less demand for general practitioners or family versus specialists? And the follow-up question I had was, based on current diagnosis that you folks do, current treatments and current staffing, I was curious to know what the breakup between nurse practitioners and MDs essentially.
Yeah, so we at Virtuwell, we are doing only primary care right now, but we will be getting into other areas obviously soon. We are working on it. Unfortunately, I can't disclose it. But for primary care, if you go to any retail clinic right now, you will usually see a physician assistant or a nurse practitioner. So our model is also very similar. So it's kind of like Minute Clinic, put an internet face to it. If you're local here, you should know about Minute Clinic. So the model is if you go to Minute Clinic, it's usually $90 to $100. So we wanted to get to the same kind of treatment plan at a little bit faster rate at $50 price point. So it's like taking the Amazon face and putting it on to the Minute Clinic model. That's how we started. So that's what Virtuwell is. So we do use a lot of nurse practitioners. Obviously, we do have docs because if you're a physician assistant, you need to have like a doc under, and then you have to have the physician assistants under there. So we do have a model of like a lot of nurse practitioners. And all of the Virtuwell folks, they all work from home, all the nurse practitioners and physician assistants and docs. And we do have like our own EHR, EMR, which they access through thin client. And that's how it operates. So to answer your first question, so that was the second question. I hope I answered it. So based on the needs, yes, we do need a lot of docs. So this is not going to be a complete replacement. So people always ask me, is AI going to make all the jobs go away? Isn't it? So my answer is exactly 100 years ago, if you look at just United States, more than 55% of the population at that time was working in farming. Okay, so you got to work on some kind of farming. I'm talking about this 100 years ago, before digitization, around the industrialization time. And people were worried about industrialization. Yes, people were worried about digitization. So when computers came in, so is it all going to replace all the jobs? So if you really look at it, the unemployment rate, okay, granted, today it's at a different number, but at the beginning of this year, if you look at it, unemployment was at the lowest. And I'm sure after COVID is all conquered, we will get back to that same 5% or 3% rate. And our farming needs have doubled, actually doubled, no, more than doubled. But less than 3% of entire United States population today is working in farming, compared to the 55% in 1920 to today. So same way, AI will create lots of new jobs. So we still need a lot of docs. I know to some extent, radiology is getting disturbed right now, but if you go really look at it, people are waiting, especially in even in China or India, for instance. There are companies who are actually shifting radiology to look at all these reports, and people are waiting. And the wait time is so huge. In sometimes you need the answer in an hour or in 10 minutes in healthcare. And unfortunately, it's taking a lot of time, like more than a week or more than 2 weeks. There is a recently published article on a Chinese 10+ year degree holder kind of people who are committing suicide. If you go look at that article, it talks about Chinese radiologists are the ones who commit a lot of suicides. The reason is they get to they are overworked and they get to it a little later. And by the time the patient is already, crossed the care delivery point, or there is no recovery process for it. So they feel the burden of it. And so if you ask me personally, I would say we need a lot more healthcare providers in our country right now, or in the whole world.
That's cool. I just sent out a request to see if there's any other questions. And my comment is, as you were talking about telehealth more specifically, or actually just getting a lot of these prescriptions and stuff like that, I harken back to the days of WebMD. Right?
Yes.
Where it's like,
yes.
My elbow hurts, and then all of a sudden you go down this whole path and you have cancer and you're going to die, right?
Yes, Justin, exactly. So when we talked about, we wanted to provide a simple user interface, because WebMD, I know 5 screens later, you will see like at least 5 places where it'll have cancer in it. And then that's what is happening even in today when people go and do a lot of Google search. So don't act as a docs. So that's where these care delivery platforms come in play, because they do have all the knowledge built in this system, plus all the care delivery people. So this is the right combo, isn't it? So don't Google it. And I would say WebMD is a scary place even today.
Got a quick question. Is FDA approval more challenging for AI-assisted products, especially?
Yeah, I am sure. Go read about it in the IDXDR, because it's not easy to get an FDA approval. There are a lot of algorithms and everything is approved in Europe. I'm sure it's a lot easier in India and China, I'm sure. But FDA approval process, it takes, especially on healthcare, med world and care delivery, it touches a lot of people's life, isn't it? So they are very, very careful. So in 100 companies approach them, not even, I think it's less than 1%. So I don't know the exact percentage. So the companies that I highlighted are the ones that are successful. There are like hundreds of companies that are in the pipeline that I can talk about the next 5 hours, who are waiting and then who have a probability. And so that's all totally different story, Justin. So
yeah, I think as a follow-up question, it was like more, I think it also said, especially as the AI learns and adapts over time. I mean, does that open up a question of you have to continually get FDA approval?
Yes. Yes. So for instance, if you're going to slightly change from one protocol even to a different, you have to reapply. So you have to start somewhere. So for instance, when we did the follow-up care prediction, so we took the UTI and I, for instance, because we cannot do it across the board, isn't it? So then we took that learning, and then our folks did some kind of data extrapolation to do learning on other places where, for instance, in burn, we don't have that many people who come up with burn in a telehealth setting, especially sunburn in the 2 states that we treat. We don't get that many people. So we don't have that many data to begin with. So it's kind of very hard to train it. And I'm sure all the AI folks know much more about that. So we have to work towards more data, more training, and then work on some things. Still don't do AI and those things, get to whatever we can and extrapolate data. So that's what we do.
Gotcha.
But we have been very fortunate, Justin, because we are part of health partners. So we do get a lot of access to regular clinic data. We do have 60 plus clinics. I'm talking about primary care clinics in and around Twin Cities, all the Park Nicollet Clinic and everything. And also we have a few hospitals under our umbrella, like Regents Hospital, Methodist Hospital, Hudson Hospital. There are a few more. So we get access to all of these data. So we know the continuum of care and how to deliver care. So when people move from one platform to another, so we can close the loop on all of those things.
Cool. I think we got another question. Any comment on how some of the 24-hour nurse on call that use software to narrow down? I'm guessing United Healthcare and others offer that service.
So there is this on-call service, which is, we do also have video visits at health partners. So it kind of serves different people, isn't it? So people still want video visits. Therapy sessions are still offered through video. Careline is doing through, I mean, it's just this is what I was comparing the stock purchase thing, isn't it? Some people still like to talk to a broker. Some people do it all through the M1 Finance kind of a platform or Robinhood, isn't it? So you need to have all these different avenues for people to take the care. And some still visit the bank, and I'm not saying it's wrong. So for a lot of things, you still need to go to the clinic. And then in some cases, you still need to go to the hospital. So we have to have like a starting point, and then if somebody can route it to the proper place, then that makes it a lot better, I suppose.
Excellent. Cool. So the future is just a lot more data for you guys?
Yes. Yes, Justin. That's
in short.
yeah. I think data is the new oil, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't sure if there's any new features. I mean, obviously you guys are working on a lot of stuff internally you can't share, but just more as an industry standard where companies are sort of pushing the envelope.
Yeah. So right now, if you look at it, it's more on primary care, isn't it? So how is it going to move to chronic care? How is it going to do behavioral health? So all of that, plus a lot of IoT devices, as I mentioned here, are coming out.
Mm-hmm.
So we know in the future who we will be partnering with, or if this data comes in, then how can we leverage that? So it's not only IoT, I would say the future is on lab, some kind of lab processing it. And then you need to do what do you do with all that data? Because then we will be ending up going into WebMD and getting scared, isn't it? So you got to connect all of that data point through a care delivery person, so who has the expertise. So that's where a virtual kind of platform helps, isn't it? It connects the patients to the right clinician with the right kind of info.
Gotcha. And like you said, you're leveraging data from health partners and the other clinic network. You opened up some thoughts in my head though. I mean, like if I was using my Fitbit, for example, how would that data get into you guys, or are you guys even?
So we ask that, right now we are asked that data. So when people provide that info, so we just store it. So the next time when you come back, we know that you provided temperature through this temperature sensor, through this. So we ask, okay, did you take it this time? Did you take it yesterday? What was the diff? So if you really look at it, the questioner becomes intelligent. And that's the right kind of questions to arrive at the solution for the nurse practitioners. So it's up to you, Justin, to provide all the information.
Yep, for sure. Okay, very cool. I don't think we've got any other questions. I think, Jen, were you gonna sort of wrap things up here?
I was about to say, I don't think I have any questions, and then I kind of started thinking more. It's more about Senthil. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about like your team structure, how big I guess your quote unquote team is under you. I know obviously I want to, ask what has the growth looked like in the past couple of months. That's not what I necessarily need to ask, although it seems like this industry and then probably, the team under you is maybe a little bit more immune to some of the industry issues, but maybe what the growth has looked like in the past couple of years and what you and your team have looked like in growing that team and the culture, just given what Virtuwell does.
Yeah, so Virtuwell is very fortunate. So we are a pretty lean and mean company. So it's more like a startup, even though we are a 9+-year-old company. We are a division of Health Partners, but we have been pretty independent outside of Health Partners, inside a small building. And our team, the data science team is pretty small, like 3-member team. We do have a couple of consultants every now and then. We do work with a couple of outsourced partners on the data science side of things. But our web and mobile team, we have like 7 or 8 folks, a couple of systems engineering people, a couple of content and rules analysts, a couple of QA. So it's a pretty small team, Jen.
That's lean and mean.
Yeah, but we do, a lot of people think if you go to Virtuwell, it's about virtuwell.com. And that's only less than 20% of our code base. A lot of it is on the EHR, EMR. And we do work with 18 different insurance companies, apart from Health Partner. I mean, Health Partners being one of them, 17 other companies. So
Sure.
we do work with them, plus credit card processing. So we are HIPAA compliant, high-tech compliant. But the beauty of our team is whenever we need any kind of compliance and regulations help, we piggyback on Health Partners. So we have a very small marketing team, 4 or 5 people, but when we need some, for instance, in the month of March, we needed additional nurse practitioners, registered nurse, physician assistants, isn't it? We all know what happened in mid-March. But Health Partners has hundreds of folks who were sitting at home at that time because all the regular clinics were closed. So we were able to utilize some of them to immediately get trained on the virtual EHR and put them on our payroll. So it's kind of a unique platform to have that kind of a model. So if needed, we have a big data machine learning team in Health Partners. So we do work with those folks too. So I wouldn't say this is just our small team. Every now and then we do get help from them. Plus, we do also provide as a help to Health Partners. So we are more like an innovation engine or innovation labs division. Some people call us as HP Labs, Health Partners Labs. Nothing to do with the medical lab.
Sure.
Whenever I say lab on a Health Partner setting, it's kind of confusing to me. Have you guys have heard about Target Labs in the Bay Area and Walmart Labs in the Bay Area? So it's kind of very similar, yeah. that model.
Interesting. And then can you remind me again, how long have you been CTO of Virtuwell?
So when I started, I built this team around. So we started 10 plus years ago.
Okay, so you were there in the beginning.
Yeah, so right when this was in a piece of paper, so Kevin Palateo, who's is the senior VP of all the clinic care delivery system of Health Partners, he had this vision. And then when I was interviewing, I was with the consulting firm, so I never wanted to leave consulting. And I was doing much better with consulting at United Health Group. So I said, like, Health Partners, I don't want to come work for Health Partners. And Kevin said, like, you come, this is going to be a unique division, what we want to build. And we looked at your skill set and why don't you give it a try? So I said, oh, wow, this is pretty unique. And I said, like, I want to call the deployment shots and everything. So the company gave me pretty much the freedom to build this entire team in the last 10 years. So I've been there from day one. So from day one, I was called as a tech manager. So I'm still playing the same tech manager role. So it has evolved to a CTO. Now Kevin calls me as a CIO, but I don't care about all these roles.
That's awesome. Yeah, so you were convinced, and then obviously everything kind of continued as well. That's
yeah. So we do have like few. We
we
have grown from a 5-member team in year 2010 to more than 150-member team today.
Wow, that's cool. I like hearing that background. Thanks for sharing. I'll put my video on too.
Yep, it's all in St. Paul.
Does anyone have questions based off of that? Dan, I know you were commenting a few times as well, but because that you have the similar background, I just want to make sure we don't cut anyone off.
Like your background.
He's stuck on mute.
Thanks. Oh,
I got to figure out how to do that on my.
Allow him to speak.
Yeah.
I'm trying to unmute you, Dan. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just very impressed. Great presentation. You have a fantastic background. And I loved your really broad coverage of AI across so many dimensions of healthcare.
Thank you, Dan.
Just really fortunate to have you in our community. And I hope that you continue to do great things in AI. And one of my big concerns is mentoring our young students that are coming out of college these days with a modern curriculum. And for me, I work in the Optum, what's called the Advanced Technology Collaborative. Our job is to look at emerging landscape of technologies and apply them to the right business units. And one of our challenges is getting trained people. So I was wondering what your thoughts are on what we can do to promote good. Well, first of all, the ground thing we really need is data literacy, right? We don't have enough data literacy throughout all of our educational systems from high school on up. But more importantly, Justin and I and several others are really trying to get exposure to AI to our younger students. And so Justin and Jen and others are telling you about what we're working on, something called the AI Racing League. These little Raspberry Pi things mounted in RC cars to try to get people engaged and take the fear out of AI, right? If you actually make them learn how to teach a car how to drive around a track, they get less fearful of machine learning and stuff. So I was going to ask you about your thoughts on it. What do we do to get more people into AI, and how do we encourage them to stick with it and bring the right skills to our companies?
Great questions, Dan. I don't know. I'm still figuring it out. It's a challenge, isn't it? So what we did was we gave a couple of our, this is just a small example that we did. So we hired a couple of interns at our office as software engineers, and one person in the last 2 years, he actually took a lot of courses from Coursera to Udacity, different, I think datacamp.org and edx.org. So we do have a lot of lunch and learns at our office. So our data science team is very active in fact, I myself took 2 courses because they pushed me to take those. Those were a little tougher to finish the assignments and everything. These are
yeah.
These are not easy. Like one I took from Stanford from Coursera. The other one was edx.org. I did the evening MBA from St. Thomas 10, 12, maybe 13, 14 years ago. So I know the rigor. So but this was even tougher than that. But it was good. It was good. So our team actually has that kind of, like, I've done this, now can you go ahead and do it? Or how do I say this? It's kind of a culture. It's a creative culture, and people are doing it, and we all get motivated by that. So that kind of thing needs to happen across the board, across all communities, I suppose. And so that has actually helped us out quite a bit at Virtuwell. We have been very, very fortunate in the longevity of the folks who are with the company. So like our product analyst, she's been with us for the last 7-8 years. If you go look at Virtuwell's, don't steal our folks, but you can look at the LinkedIn profile of the folks. They've morphed in the last 4 or 5 years. And people are very passionate about what problem that they're working on. And we do read the feedback from the patients. It's just not about like technocrat skills. It's also about what you bring to the table.
Yeah, that's great. I say we have also put a lot of people through our own internal Optum Tech University.
Yeah, I know. You guys do a phenomenal job. I've been there. Dan did like, the analytics group. He's doing a phenomenal job, and I've been there a couple of times too.
Yeah, our challenge is that some of our best people, after we train them, they get hired away to other companies. So it's not just training; it's retaining, and that's
just retain. Yes, Dan.
And our challenge is our human capital group doesn't give you a raise in salary proportional to your learning of an emerging tech, right?
Yes.
And one of the classic stories, I lead a lot of graph databases, so we're trying to migrate everything off of relational into graph for clinical data, perfect fit for highly unstructured data, a lot of NLP. And I think the average raise for a person that has 6 months of graph is 40%. That they're getting out, that's the raise that they're getting just the day they leave Optum, right? So it's
40%, Dan?
Well,
Yes.
it's much higher for some areas, but on the average,
It's very hard to keep as Dan mentioned. I was at a meetup where I met the CIO from Rochester Mayo Clinic.
Mhm.
So sitting right next to me, and we were talking about the same topic, retaining talent. This was like December, so 4 months ago. Retaining talent, and he was mentioning to me he lost like one of the lead data science engineers to Google a couple of months ago. So I was telling him, like, from Mayo Clinic, why would a person move to Google, to Verily? I mean, and he said, no, it is Google. And you'd be surprised on his package. And I was like, okay, what does Google offer? They said his sign-on bonus was $1 million.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
I don't know how you would compete against that, Dan.
Yeah. No, but remember, Google, I would say Amazon is starting to hire for
Yes.
machine learning in the Twin Cities. I have several friends at Amazon. They're looking for people, and they're saying that some of their engineers, their starting rates for somebody that has 3 to 5 years is almost $250,000.
Right, Dan. So we have the last few hires we have had are from colleges here straight. So they are computer science graduates. And then we train them on the job. So our model is same like what Google does, 80-20. So most of our Fridays, half a day, some people spend a day in learning something new, and a lot of the folks spend in data camp or EDX or other things that I mentioned, like Udemy, Udacity, those kind of things. And some are actually spending time even in St. Thomas and other universities, but not a lot of universities have latest and greatest here. I'm not complaining, but the overall the platform for virtual learning has been really good in the last 4 or 5 years.
Yes.
We look for the kids, I should say students who had that kind of an exposure. So for instance, if you're applying at Virtuwell, the first question we ask is, what was the open source thing that you have contributed? It can be anything. And what course did you take last in a virtual learning platform or something? Could be anything. But can you talk about the pros and cons, things like that? And it definitely helps, because it shows that you're hungry, and then any problem set will become a little bit easier once you're hungry.
Cool. Well, we ended off on a different topic than healthcare specifically, but I think this is great. I mean, you guys are sort of in the middle of it, both Dan, Senthil, you guys are sort of seeing all this stuff firsthand. My feedback, I guess, is to me, healthcare is like, it touches human lives, right? So the reason that I think AI is so interesting in this space is you can really make a huge difference in the population, in people's well-being, all that type of stuff, rather than working on a recommendation engine. Not to say that doesn't have its own thing with regards to Netflix recommendations, but I think the power of what you're talking about here, and sort of the very interesting thing about all of this stuff is it comes down to lives. And so this is a great application that you guys are really involved in right now.
We have to talk about this, isn't it, Justin? Because it's more than 20% of our GDP.
Yeah, 18.
Like 20 years ago it was like 5% or something like that, isn't it? Or 40 years ago was 5%. Today is 18 or 20.
Yeah, with the whole baby boomer generation, right? There's just so many people that are in this high age category here that it's just it's a huge amount of power you can have when you're talking about that many people.
Yeah, one of the biggest areas of research we're having is explainable AI. We are building lots of predictive models. We have almost 3,000 data scientists at Optum United Healthcare. but we can't make recommendations in the clinic without an explanation of why. And that is a really hot area right now. And what we're trying to do is basically using machine learning to build up a knowledge graph, and have that knowledge graph when we have a clinic person in front of us, we traverse that graph, match it to their condition. We do similarity in hardware FPGAs now. So that we can compare a patient with 100 million other patients in 30 milliseconds. But we still have to explain it. And so we literally have to generate an explanation document with the recommendations. Otherwise, nobody will trust us. So those are all areas of great areas of research, and a lot of opportunities for innovation and patents if we get our students working on those problems.
Nice. Okay.
We did have one question. Is it Sergey or Sergi? I will unmute you. He
Yes, it doesn't really matter, Sergey.
sorry, I didn't. Sergey. Okay. Didn't want to screw it up. But sorry, you can go ahead. I saw your chat and I realized you probably can't unmute yourself. So go ahead.
Yeah, it's I'm half scientist, half programmer, and I'm working with a virtual assistant in healthcare for many years, for almost 30. Started from Harvard Clinical Diagnostic Decision Making, and but my question is hearing more and more about artificial intelligence today. I'm feel a little scared that artificial intelligence starts substitute doctors. For me, it's whatever AI is, it's still a tool. Not really big difference between, you know, I'd just say the hammer for me when I'm nailing something, or a stethoscope when doctor hears the sound inside. So my virtual helping doctor better understand feeling. So how I feel, my pain, which could not be recognized by any objective devices. Where is my pain located, how I feel, etc., etc. But still, it's a tool. And more and more now, AI used to, as a substitution for doctor. When we say, oh, diagnostics or decision-making, I totally understand why we need to be very careful saying diagnostics, because doctors soon can say, okay, go to your virtual. So what do you think about this? So how you compare artificial intelligence by intellectual power, let's see, comparison to the power of doctors. Microscope can scale it and you know, zoom to the thousands of times, but that's still doctor.
Yes.
Interpret results totally different than microscope itself.
Great point, sorry. Yeah, I know. Whenever I read about all these new FDA approval, augmented AI, then I agree with you. Yes, it's a sophisticated tool. It helps decision making faster, but it still goes through the clinician. So it's instead of the hammer and the nail, it's some kind of a new tool which makes it a little bit faster, isn't it? Some of the newer power tools are good. You make the job a lot faster, isn't it? So it's similar to that. I agree with you. But some newer complete autonomous AI, I am sure FDA is looking at with a double lens to just make sure that not a lot of autonomous AI are coming through. So, but the augmented AI is definitely helping to make decisions faster. Yes.
Yeah, because it's one of the problem I have. A lot of my friends, doctors, from professors, practitioners, and I'm a programmer. And when I look at the current AI and I just think how artificial intelligence can write a program as I do, I understand this. It's so far from in the complexity when I'm coding, when I'm programming, doing something, and when machine learning or artificial intelligence will do the same. So it's totally different. And the same with doctors. They are more complicated and sophisticated in the program, in healthcare than me as a programmer. Practitioners, I have 150,000 average patients per life. So their machine learning, human learning, is so advanced comparison to whatever we introduce as a researcher and technologist in the market. But many people start to believe in artificial intelligence as substitution.
Yeah, it's not a substitution yet, I wouldn't say. It's a very, very, very fractional portion that it is starting, but a lot of it is used as a tool. So as Dan mentioned, we got to have a lot of explainability. So that's where it's going to take years before it's all going to be sort of completely autonomous. So I don't think so. This argument of like having a human out of this care delivery is going to happen in the future. I don't think so. So it's got to be a combo of both. I know you can 3D print a house, but you still need to have the right kind of talent to build a customizable home, isn't it? But there are hundreds of tools. So if you have the right kind of tools, that'll make your job a lot faster. And if you have proven methodologies to get these things worked out, then it makes it even faster. And you learn from previous mistakes. So that's how I look at it. These kind of newer software will enable these clinicians to make decisions faster and better too. So, so it's all about learning continuously and researching the research papers.
Thank you.
Excellent. Cool. Well, coming up on 20 minutes to the hour. So
yeah,
definitely appreciate everyone for attending the meeting. Senthil for giving us all the information you have. We our next meetup is June 4th. We're actually looking for a presenter. We've been talking to a couple of people, but we're definitely looking for presenters for that. So please reach out to Jen or myself if you're available. So yeah, and we meet the first Thursday of every month. We'll likely be doing another Zoom call here. I don't think anything's opening up by then, so we'll be sure to post it on Meetup. Anything else I'm missing, Jen?
No, I don't think so. Thank you so much, Senthil, for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. If you have any feedback, anybody in the call, just reach out to me in LinkedIn or send it to me.
I was gonna say, you know, we recorded it. I know at least 2 people who said that they were gonna hop on if they could, but they were gonna listen to the recording as well. So you might get follow up from that.
No worries.
Are able to, you know, watch at the time.
Great. Appreciate everyone attending, and definitely looking forward to seeing you all next month.
Thank you so much, guys.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.